My name is Miller, and at 32, I spent 8 years building a career as a software developer while watching my sister Natalie receive endless favors. Growing up, the pattern was clear. She was the golden child, I was the afterthought. Through discipline and sacrifice, I managed to save nearly $175,000 until Natalie decided she was entitled to it. What followed was the ultimate family betrayal that forced me to choose between my future and their approval. Before I tell you how my entire family turned against me, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up to entitled family members. I grew up in a middle-class suburb, about 20 miles outside of Boston. On paper, we were the quintessential American family. Dad worked his way up to middle management at a regional bank, proud of his corner office and company car. Mom taught 3rd grade at the local elementary school, beloved by students and parents alike for her creative teaching methods. Our 3-bedroom colonial, with its small but well-kept yard, nestled in a neighborhood where kids rode bikes until streetlights came on. From the outside, the Carlson family portrait seemed perfectly normal. 2 working parents, 2 kids, 1 dog named Rusty, and backyard barbecues on summer weekends. But inside those walls, the dynamic was anything but balanced. From my earliest memories, the favoritism toward my sister Natalie was subtle but unmistakable. When she was 13 and I was 10, she'd get brand new outfits for school while I wore cousins' hand-me-downs. Dad would explain it away with practical excuses. "Girls' clothes can't really be passed down, Miller. Be practical." Mom would add, "Natalie needs to fit in with her friends. You know how girls that age are." Their calendar always had room for Natalie's events. My parents never missed her choir performances or soccer games, sitting front row recording every moment. Meanwhile, my academic competitions or baseball games were attended sporadically, if at all. There was always a reason. Dad had an important meeting, Mom had papers to grade. I learned to tell them about my events at the last minute, sparing myself the disappointment of expecting them to show. The pattern reached its peak during my high school graduation. I was set to receive an award for outstanding achievement in computer science, something I'd worked toward for 4 years. Halfway through the ceremony, I watched from the stage as my parents slipped out the back door. Later, I learned they left to make it to Natalie's dance recital across town. When I arrived home, still in my graduation gown, the house was empty. A hastily scribbled note on the kitchen counter read, "Congrats. Leftovers in fridge. Had to take Nat to celebration dinner with her dance friends. Don't wait up." That night shaped me more than they'll ever know. I sat alone on our back porch, still in my graduation clothes, and made a promise to myself. I would build my life without expecting anything from anyone. Independence wasn't just a goal, it became my shield. I got my first job at 16, working weekends at Comptech, the local electronics store. While friends spent Saturdays at the mall, I learned about computer components from Gary, the gruff but knowledgeable manager who recognized my curiosity. After hours, he'd let me disassemble and rebuild the display models that weren't selling well. "You've got a mind for this," he'd say, which meant more to me than any half-hearted compliment my parents ever offered. High school became merely a daytime obligation. Evenings and weekends were dedicated to teaching myself programming languages through library books and early internet forums. My bedroom transformed into a workshop of discarded tech parts and programming manuals. Mom complained about the mess but never interfered. My space was the one area where I had complete autonomy. When college application season arrived, the contrast between Natalie's experience and mine couldn't have been starker. My parents had been contributing to Natalie's college fund since her birth. Multiple campus tours were arranged for her, professional photos taken for applications, and an SAT prep tutor hired despite her mediocre interest in academics. For me, the conversation was brief. State University has a decent computer program, and you can live at home to save money. The unspoken message was clear: family resources were allocated elsewhere. I had different plans. Through relentless studying and those same programming skills I'd taught myself, I secured a merit scholarship to the State University's engineering program. The day the letter arrived, Mom said she was proud but quickly pivoted to concerns about Natalie's upcoming college decisions. Dad simply nodded and asked if the scholarship covered room and board. It didn't, but I'd already calculated exactly how many hours I'd need to work to afford a shared apartment near campus. College continued the pattern of self-reliance. I worked 25 hours weekly at the university's IT department while carrying a full course load. Holidays meant picking up extra shifts while other students went home. Meanwhile, Natalie attended an expensive private liberal arts college 3 states away, her apartment fully furnished by our parents, her monthly expenses covered by their credit card. "Your sister isn't as naturally capable as you are," Mom would explain during rare phone conversations. "She needs more support to thrive." After graduation, our paths diverged even more dramatically. I secured a position at Tech Fusion, a growing software company in Boston. The starting salary wasn't impressive, but the potential for growth was. I rented a modest 1-bedroom apartment in an unfashionable neighborhood and drove the same reliable Honda I'd purchased in college. Every paycheck was meticulously allocated necessities emergency fund retirement account and my steadily growing savings. Natalie's post-college journey resembled an expensive game of career hopscotch. First came her marketing coordinator position at a fashion magazine, which she quit after 6 months because her boss was suffocating her creativity. Then our parents paid for her to attend an interior design program, which she abandoned halfway through, after deciding it wasn't her passion after all. A brief stint in pharmaceutical sales ended when she couldn't meet the quarterly targets. Now she worked at a boutique real estate firm, a job she'd held for almost 11 months, her longest employment stretch to date. While she cycled through careers and apartments, I maintained course. My lifestyle remained modest, despite promotions and salary increases. My apartment was functional rather than fashionable. My wardrobe consisted of basics that wouldn't raise eyebrows at the office, but wouldn't turn heads either. The only luxury I allowed myself was an annual hiking trip to national parks, where I'd disconnect completely for a week. Colleagues occasionally ribbed me about my frugal habits, but I had a spreadsheet they didn't see, one that tracked my investments, savings, and projected timeline to financial independence. My ultimate goal wasn't flashy cars or designer labels. I dreamed of reaching a point where I could start my own software consultancy or fund a tech startup without investors controlling my vision, maybe even retire early and travel extensively, freedom that required capital and discipline now. Family gatherings became exercises in deflection. Dad would inquire about my work with vague interest, his attention perking only when discussing potential salary increases. "Still at the same company, huh? No ambition to move up to one of those big tech firms. The money's much better." He never quite understood that stability and long-term growth at a company that respected work-life balance aligned perfectly with my financial strategy. Mom would survey my practical clothing and haircut with slight disappointment, occasionally suggesting I live a little or wondering aloud if I was dating anyone who might bring some excitement into my life. The suggestion that my methodical approach to life indicated something lacking rather than a deliberate choice was a constant undercurrent. Natalie's approach to my financial discipline evolved from dismissive to entitled as years passed. Initially, she'd joke about me being cheap or boring. Later, she began dropping hints about helping family whenever she faced financial shortfalls. Small loans requested became larger ones expected. $100 for unexpected car repairs became $500 for rent when she decided to take an unpaid week off work. The repayment time frame stretched from next week to when things settled down to simply not mentioned at all. I maintained careful boundaries, occasionally helping with truly essential expenses, but refusing to fund lifestyle choices that exceeded her income. Each refusal was met with increasing emotional manipulation, tears, accusations of selfishness, reminders of how our parents had always helped her. "That's different," she'd argue when I pointed out the inequality. "They're our parents. That's what parents do." What she really meant was, "That's what parents do for you. What siblings do for me." The pattern continued for years, creating a tense but manageable dynamic. Then came the Sunday dinner that would ultimately shatter our family and change the trajectory of my life forever. April in New England brings unpredictable weather, and that particular Sunday featured unseasonable warmth that had neighbors optimistically setting up patio furniture. I rarely visited my parents' home anymore, limiting family interactions to major holidays and occasional Sunday dinners, when the guilt of declining too many invitations outweighed my desire for peaceful solitude. That evening I arrived at the familiar Colonial with a bottle of Mom's preferred white wine and the resignation of someone preparing for an unavoidable social obligation. The house smelled of pot roast and lemon furniture polish. Mom's traditional Sunday dinner preparation ritual hadn't changed in 20 years. Dad was stationed in his recliner watching golf, with the practiced concentration of someone avoiding household chores. He glanced up briefly when I entered. "Miller, you're early for once." Not a question, not quite a greeting, just an observation with the faintest hint of surprise. Mom emerged from the kitchen, wiping hands on her apron, her teacher's smile firmly in place. "There's my busy boy. I was just about to call and make sure you remembered." She accepted the wine with exaggerated gratitude, as though I'd presented her with a rare vintage instead of her regular $12 Chardonnay from the grocery store. Dinner conversation followed the usual pattern. Dad inquired about my job with the vague interest of someone discussing a distant acquaintance's hobby. "Still fixing computer problems for the same company," he asked between bites of roast beef. "Creating software solutions." I corrected gently, the same clarification I'd offered countless times. "And yes, Tech Fusion is doing well. We just landed a major healthcare client that should keep us busy through next year." "Computers," Dad nodded sagely, as though summarizing a complex concept. "Good steady work, I suppose. Not exciting, but steady." Mom redirected with practiced diplomacy. "I ran into Margaret Wilson at the grocery store. You remember her, taught music at my school. Her son works at one of those big tech companies now. What's it called? Goggle." "Google, Mom." "Yes, that's it. Apparently they have massage chairs and free lunch every day. Do you have anything like that at your company?" Before I could explain that perks like massage chairs often compensated for grueling hours and burnout-inducing expectations, the front door swung open with dramatic force. Natalie breezed in 45 minutes late, carrying nothing but radiating excitement, like she'd brought the most precious gift of all her presents. "Sorry I'm late," she announced without sounding remotely apologetic. "You would not believe the day I've had." She air-kissed Mom, high-fived Dad, and gave me a distracted wave before dropping into her chair at the table. "I need wine immediately. I have the biggest news." Mom scrambled to pour her a glass while Dad leaned forward with genuine interest that had been notably absent during my career update. I recognized the family choreography. Natalie's entrance always reset the energy of any room, placing her at its center. "I found it," Natalie declared after a theatrical sip of wine. "The absolute perfect house." "A house for a client?" Mom asked. Natalie laughed as though Mom had said something adorably naive. "No, for me. It's in Brookline, this gorgeous colonial revival with original hardwood floors and a sunroom that would be perfect for morning yoga. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, and the kitchen." She clutched her heart dramatically. "Viking range marble countertops and these pendant lights that look straight out of a magazine." Dad frowned slightly. "Brookline's expensive. What's a place like that going for these days?" $795,000, Natalie replied casually, as though discussing the price of a dinner entree rather than a sum that would take most people decades to accumulate. I nearly choked on my water. Natalie had been at her current job less than a year. Even with generous real estate commissions, the math was impossible. "Sweetheart, that's wonderful that you found something you love," but Mom began gently. "I already put down a refundable deposit to hold it," Natalie interrupted, beaming. "The market's so competitive right now. My broker friend Sandra said I had to move fast. Don't worry, I have it all figured out." Dad looked simultaneously concerned and impressed by her initiative. Mom shot me a quick glance, perhaps sensing my skepticism, before turning back to Natalie with a forced smile. "Well, tell us more about this dream house." For the next 30 minutes, we were subjected to an exhaustive description of every architectural detail, neighborhood amenity, and future decoration plan. Natalie's enthusiasm was undeniable. Her eyes sparkled as she described the home's character and potential. Not once did she mention practical considerations like property taxes, maintenance costs, or how she planned to afford a mortgage that would clearly exceed her income. As dinner concluded, and Mom served her signature apple crumble, Natalie suddenly turned her attention to me. "Miller, let's catch up. I feel like we've barely talked lately. Help me clear the dishes." In the kitchen, away from our parents, Natalie initially maintained the pretense of sibling bonding. She asked surface-level questions about my job while loading the dishwasher haphazardly in a way that would require rearranging after she left. So the coding stuff is going well, making good money. Software development, I corrected automatically. And, yes, the company's doing well. I'm leading a new project That's great, she interrupted, clearly uninterested in details. You've always been so good with all that technical stuff. Really smart with money, too. The pivot was so transparent I nearly laughed. Thanks. Natalie leaned against the counter, studying her manicure with forced casualness. Speaking of money, I'm in a bit of a situation with the house. The house you can't afford. The words slipped out before I could filter them. Her expression flickered between annoyance and determination. I can afford it with the right investment. That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. She lowered her voice conspiratorially. I need a down payment of $125,000 in 2 weeks to secure the mortgage. The number hung in the air between us. $125,000. Not a small favor or temporary loan, but a sum that represented years of my disciplined saving and careful planning. Natalie, I struggled to find words that wouldn't immediately escalate the conversation. That's not a small amount. Where are you planning to get that kind of money? She looked at me like I was being deliberately obtuse. From you, obviously. I know you've been saving practically every penny since college. You must have at least that much just sitting in accounts doing nothing. The casual entitlement in her tone rendered me momentarily speechless. My savings weren't doing nothing, they represented security, opportunity, and freedom from exactly this type of financial pressure. My savings are allocated for specific goals. I finally responded, keeping my voice even. I'm not in a position to... Oh, come on, Miller, she cut in, rolling her eyes. You just got lucky with your boring tech job. I'm trying to build something real here, a home, a future. This house is perfect for when I eventually settle down and have a family. I didn't get lucky. I worked consistently at one company for 8 years while living below my means specifically to build financial security. Whatever, she waved dismissively. The point is, you have the money, and I need it. Family helps family. You can spare it. It's not about sparing it, Natalie. That represents years of... I'll pay you back eventually, of course, she continued as though I hadn't spoken. Once my career really takes off. I'm up for this huge listing next month, and when the market shifts, the house will appreciate, and we can consider it an investment for both of us. There's no we in this scenario, I said firmly. This is your house, your mortgage, your responsibility. I'm not giving you my savings for a down payment on a house you can't afford. Her expression transformed instantly, the pleasant facade crumbling to reveal indignant anger. Are you serious right now? After everything our family has done for you? The irony of this statement was so profound I almost laughed. What exactly has our family done for me that compares to handing over $125,000? Oh, playing the victim again, she sneered. Poor Miller, always feeling so overlooked. Maybe if you weren't such a robot about everything, people would actually want to help you. I'm trying to build a real life here while you're hoarding money for what? Some theoretical future that might never happen. I'm not giving you the money, Natalie. That's final. I kept my voice calm but firm. Her eyes narrowed, tears suddenly appearing with suspicious timing. You really don't care about anyone but yourself, do you? Without waiting for a response, she pushed past me and stormed back to the dining room. I remained in the kitchen, hands gripping the counter, taking deep breaths. Through the doorway, I could hear her voice rising dramatically. Miller refuses to help me. After everything I've done for him, he won't help me with the house. And just like that, the battle lines were drawn in a war I never wanted to fight. The kitchen doorway framed a scene straight from childhood. Natalie, at the center, tears, strategically deployed, my parents rushing to comfort her while shooting disappointed glances in my direction. I steeled myself before walking back to the dining room, where 3 pairs of eyes turned to me with varying degrees of accusation. Dad spoke first, his banker's voice measured but stern. Miller, your sister just shared what you discussed in the kitchen. I think we need to talk about family responsibility. There's nothing to discuss, I replied evenly. Natalie asked me to give her $125,000 for a down payment on a house she can't afford. I declined. It wouldn't be giving. Natalie interjected, her voice trembling perfectly. It would be helping. An investment in family. Mom reached across to squeeze her hand. Sweetheart, I'm sure your brother doesn't mean to be difficult. Miller's always been. She paused, searching for a diplomatic term. Careful with his resources. Careful, Dad scoffed. The boy's been squirreling away money like the apocalypse is coming since he was 16. Meanwhile, your sister is trying to establish herself, build a proper life. The familiar dynamic reasserted itself. My practical concerns dismissed, Natalie's impulsive decisions rationalized. I maintained my composure, though my pulse hammered in my temples. A proper life doesn't mean buying a house you can't afford with someone else's money, I said quietly. This attitude is exactly why you're alone. Mom sighed, the non sequitur landing like a calculated blow. Always numbers, never heart. Dad leaned forward, his authoritative posture reminiscent of childhood lectures. Son, family means supporting each other. Your mother and I have always been there when either of you needed anything. Now your sister needs your help for something important. You've been there for Natalie. I corrected the words, escaping before I could reconsider. There's quite a difference. The room fell silent. I'd broken the unspoken family rule, never acknowledged the imbalance. That's unfair, Mom finally said, her teacher voice emerging. We've supported both our children equally. Natalie seized the opportunity, pivoting to righteous indignation. See, this is what he does. Turns everything into some competition, some grievance. I'm trying to make a life milestone happen, and he's bringing up ancient history. Dad raised his hand for silence. Regardless of whatever perceived inequalities you think existed in your childhood, Miller, you're an adult now. Adults in a family support each other. Your sister isn't asking for a frivolous expense. This is a home security for her future. A home that costs nearly $800,000 when she's been at her job less than a year, I pointed out. That's not security, it's financial recklessness. I'm good at my job, Natalie snapped. Just because I don't want to sit in a cubicle writing computer gibberish all day doesn't mean I can't be successful. Dad cleared his throat. The point is, Miller, we expect you to reconsider. Family comes first, always has in this household. The conversation continued in circles for another 40 minutes. No matter how clearly I explained my perspective, it was dismissed as selfish, cold, unfeeling. Eventually, I excused myself, citing an early meeting the next day. As I left, Dad's parting words followed me to the car. Think about what really matters in life, son. It isn't numbers in a bank account. The week that followed brought an escalating campaign of emotional warfare. Every morning began with text messages from Mom ranging from guilt-inducing barely slept, thinking about your poor sister's disappointment, to passive-aggressive, always thought we raised children who cared about family. Dad's approach was more direct, daily phone calls during my lunch break, his voice oscillating between stern disappointment and condescending explanation of how family obligations worked. You'll understand when you have your own kids someday, he said repeatedly, as though my childless state explained my moral failure. Natalie employed every manipulation tactic in her arsenal. Morning texts described her tears. Afternoon emails detailed the house features she'd have to give up. Evening voicemails captured her sobbing about letting down her real estate colleagues who had pulled strings to help her. By Wednesday, the circle widened. Aunt Susan, Mom's sister, sent a particularly cutting email. Your mother is heartbroken over your selfishness. After everything they've sacrificed for your education and opportunities, this is how you repay family. The irony of this message was profound. My education had been largely self-funded through scholarships and work, unlike Natalie's fully parent-supported college experience. Cousin Mark, who I'd spoken to maybe 3 times in the past decade, suddenly texted, "Dude, help your sister out. Family first, right?" Uncle Peter, Dad's brother, and a successful contractor, called to talk some sense into me despite having filed for bankruptcy twice due to his own financial mismanagement. The constant barrage affected my work performance. Marcus, my team lead and mentor figure for the past 5 years, noticed my distraction during an important client meeting. "You coding with half your brain today, Miller?" he asked afterward, his tone concerned rather than accusatory. "Not like you to miss implementation details." In his office, with the door closed, the whole story tumbled out: Natalie's demand, my parents' pressure, the extended family's coordinated guilt campaign. Marcus listened without interrupting his expression, shifting from surprise to understanding. "Family dynamics are complicated," he said when I finished. "But financial boundaries aren't. You worked hard for that money. It represents your choices, your priorities. They're making me feel like I'm crazy for not wanting to hand over nearly all my savings." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Let me ask you this. If you gave her the money, what happens 6 months from now when she can't make the mortgage payments, or when the property taxes come due, or when the roof needs replacing?" The questions crystallized my unspoken fears. This wouldn't be a one-time sacrifice, but the first withdrawal in a lifetime of financial obligations. "You know," Marcus added casually, "we've got that satellite office opening in Berlin. They're struggling to staff senior developers with project management experience. International relocation package included. Might be worth considering, if you need some geographical perspective." The seed was planted, though I didn't take it seriously at first. That changed Thursday evening when my parents and Natalie showed up unannounced at my apartment. I opened the door to find the three of them standing in the hallway like an intervention squad. Dad's expression was stern, Mom's worried, Natalie's smugly expectant. "We need to talk," Dad announced, pushing past me into my living room without waiting for an invitation. For the next 2 hours, I endured what could only be described as an emotional ambush. Dad paced my small living room, lecturing about family loyalty and obligation. Mom sat perched on the edge of my couch, alternating between teary pleas about Natalie's one chance at happiness and disappointed sighs when I remained firm. Natalie oscillated between dramatic vulnerability and barely concealed anger, her performance calibrated for our parents' presence. "I just don't understand why you hate me so much," she whimpered, when Mom was watching, then shot me a venomous glare when Dad turned to examine my modestly furnished apartment with thinly veiled disapproval. "Look at this place," he muttered, gesturing around my practical but comfortable space. "Living like a college student when you could afford better. What's the point of having money if not to live well or help family?" The breaking point came when Dad issued what amounted to an ultimatum. "You need to decide if you're part of this family, Miller. Real family members show up when needed." When they finally left, my apartment felt both emptier and more suffocating than before. Sleep proved impossible, my mind racing with their accusations, battling against my own certainty that their demands were unreasonable. At 3 in the morning, Marcus's casual mention of the Berlin position surfaced in my thoughts. Sitting at my kitchen table with only my laptop's glow for light, I researched the Berlin office, international work visas, and the logistics of relocating overseas. The company's internal job board showed the senior developer position still open. Almost without conscious decision, I updated my resume and submitted an application, expecting nothing to come of it. The response arrived in my inbox before I'd even showered for work. An interview request for 9:30 that morning, via video conference with the Berlin team lead and HR director. The urgency suggested both genuine interest and pressing need. The interview began awkwardly. I was operating on maybe 2 hours of fragmented sleep caffeine, barely masking my exhaustion. But something shifted as technical questions arose. Discussing coding challenges and system architecture provided a welcome escape from family drama. My brain engaged fully for the first time in days. "Your project management experience with healthcare clients is particularly interesting to us," said Klaus, the Berlin team lead. "We've just secured a major contract with a European medical systems provider." By interview's end, I felt a connection with these strangers that had been missing in recent interactions with my own family. They valued my expertise, respected my questions, and seemed genuinely excited about my potential contributions. "We'd like to make you an offer," Helena from HR said, surprising me with her directness. 30% salary increase from your current position, comprehensive relocation package, and expedited visa sponsorship. Our project timeline is aggressive. We'd need your decision within 48 hours. The offer was unexpected but oddly perfect. Part of me recognized I was contemplating a major life decision partly to escape family pressure, but the opportunity itself was legitimate and compelling. I promised to consider it carefully and ended the call. Throughout the workday, I weighed my options. Staying meant continued family pressure and potentially irreparable damage to relationships. Leaving meant a clean break, new professional challenges, and physical distance from toxic dynamics. By evening, my mind was mostly made up, but I felt I owed my parents one final conversation, not for permission, but for closure. I arrived at their house Friday evening with a clear purpose. This wouldn't be an argument or negotiation, simply an explanation of my decision. Natalie's car in the driveway was an unwelcome surprise. I'd hoped to speak with just my parents. Mom answered the door with visible relief. "Miller, I knew you'd come around. Come in, we were just discussing financing options." The presumption that my presence indicated surrender ignited a quiet anger I carefully controlled. In the living room, Dad and Natalie sat surrounded by papers, mortgage calculators, real estate listings, and what appeared to be a draft agreement of some kind. "I'm not here about the money," I began, remaining standing. "While they all Saturday, I wanted to let you know I've been offered a position at my company's Berlin office. I'm strongly considering accepting." The stunned silence was briefly satisfying. "Berlin. As in Germany?" Mom finally asked. "That's typically where Berlin is located, yes." The uncharacteristic sarcasm slipped out. Dad recovered quickly, his expression hardening. "Running away from family obligations, then. Typical." "I'm pursuing a career opportunity," I corrected. "One that offers substantial advancement and international experience." Natalie scoffed. "Convenient timing. The moment you're asked to actually help someone besides yourself, you're fleeing the country." "This isn't about you, Natalie. Not everything is." "Of course it's about me," she exploded, mask slipping completely. "You're doing this specifically to avoid helping me." "The Berlin position has been open for months." I lied slightly. "I've been considering it for some time." Dad stood, assuming his authoritative posture. "You're making a mistake, son. Family should come before career ambitions." "That principle seems selectively applied in this household," I replied evenly. What followed was the most honest conversation our family had ever experienced. Painful truths long suppressed, finally emerging. I detailed years of unequal treatment, double standards, and dismissal of my achievements. Dad countered with accusations of jealousy and ingratitude. Mom attempted peacekeeping, but revealed her own biases with every intervention. Natalie, sensing she was losing control of the narrative, escalated dramatically. "Just admit you hate me. You've always been jealous because Mom and Dad love me more." The childish outburst might have been almost comical if it hadn't exposed the core dysfunction so perfectly. "I don't hate you, Natalie, but I don't trust you with my financial future." "You don't need all that money," she nearly screamed. "You live like a monk anyway. What are you saving for that's so important?" "My choices, my freedom, my future," each word deliberate and firm. As the argument intensified, shocking revelations emerged. Dad inadvertently disclosed that they had refinanced their home twice to cover Natalie's failed business venture and credit card debt. Mom let slip that Natalie had already been declined by 2 mortgage lenders before approaching me. "You've enabled her financial irresponsibility for years," I said, the pieces finally connecting. "And now you expect me to continue the pattern." Dad's face flushed with anger. "We've supported both our children as they needed it. Natalie has needed more help, that's just reality." "No, you've crippled her by never allowing her to face consequences," I countered. "And now you want me to do the same." The argument continued escalating, until I finally stood to leave, emotionally exhausted but strangely liberated. "I'll let you know my decision about Berlin by Sunday." Dad's parting shot followed me to the door. "If you choose to abandon your sister when she needs you, don't expect the same family you've always had to be waiting when you decide to return." The threat lingered as I drove home, its implications slowly unfolding in my mind. Was I really being threatened with family excommunication for refusing to hand over my savings? 2 hours after returning to my apartment, the answer arrived via text from Dad. "Your mother and I have discussed the situation. Your choices are clear sign as guarantor on Natalie's mortgage by Monday, or consider your relationship with this family fundamentally changed. Family stands together, or not at all. This isn't about money but loyalty. Make the right choice, son. The message stunned me with its explicit ultimatum. Minutes later, my phone buzzed with notifications. Natalie had posted a vague but clearly targeted social media update. Heartbroken, when those who should love you most reveal their true selfishness. Some bonds I thought were unbreakable. The comments section filled rapidly with sympathetic responses, including several from extended family members who clearly knew the situation from Natalie's perspective only. Cousin Rachel family first. Always. Can't believe him, Uncle Peter. Some people forget where they came from. Aunt Susan. Call me sweetheart. We'll figure this out. The coordinated public shaming campaign was followed by a group text from Mom to several family members that accidentally included me. Miller is being stubborn about helping Natalie. If anyone can talk sense into him before he ruins family relationships permanently, please try. Something cold and clarifying settled in my chest. These weren't actions of people who respected my autonomy or cared about my well-being. These were coercive tactics designed to force compliance. At 11:30 that night, a disturbing thought struck me. Natalie still had access to a joint savings account we'd opened years ago for a family vacation fund. The account had remained open with minimal funds, but it was linked to my primary accounts for occasional transfers. I logged into my banking app to check the status and discovered something chilling: 3 failed login attempts within the past hour from an unrecognized device. Someone, almost certainly Natalie, was trying to access my accounts. The realization triggered immediate action. By midnight, I was on the phone with my bank's emergency line, implementing security freezes and removing all external access connections. By 1 in the morning, I had created entirely new accounts at a different financial institution and initiated transfers of my savings. By 2, I had changed every password security question and recovery phone number associated with my financial identity. The sense of betrayal cut deep. My own sister had attempted to access my accounts without permission. Whether to check balances or actually transfer funds remained unclear, but the boundary violation was unmistakable. This wasn't just emotional manipulation anymore. It was potentially criminal. As dawn broke, I sent a 2-word response to my father's ultimatum text. I understand. Let him interpret that however he wished. Then I emailed Helena in Berlin. I accept the position. How soon can I start? Morning brought the aftermath of my midnight financial lockdown: 57 missed calls and 36 text messages. Voicemails ranged from furious to threatening. Dad, what the hell did you do? Natalie says all accounts are frozen. Fix this immediately, or there will be serious consequences. Natalie, you absolute monster. I was just checking our joint account. How dare you accuse me of stealing after everything I've done for you? Mom, Miller, please call us. This situation is getting out of hand. Whatever you think Natalie did, I'm sure there's an explanation. Uncle Peter, your father's beside himself. Never seen him this angry. You need to make this right, son. The last message was from Mom, a simple text that somehow cut deeper than the angry voicemails. I'm disappointed in you. Not angry, not confused, disappointed. As though protecting my finances from unauthorized access was a moral failure rather than basic self-protection. While scrolling through the barrage of messages, another notification appeared: a private family chat screenshot from cousin Rachel, who had always been kind to me. Thought you should see this. Not right what they're doing. The screenshot showed a conversation between various family members discussing my mental health issues and paranoid behavior with Natalie, suggesting I might need professional help for my unhealthy relationship with money. Dad proposed a family intervention where they would help Miller see reason about his responsibilities. The coordinated character assassination confirmed my decision. These weren't the actions of people who had my best interests at heart. With strange calmness, I opened my laptop and formally accepted the Berlin position via email. Helena responded within minutes with preliminary paperwork and a proposed start date 3 weeks away. At the office, I requested a private meeting with my director to submit my 2-week notice. Marcus seemed unsurprised. Berlin made an offer: Yes, I'm accepting. He nodded slowly. I had a feeling you might. They're getting a hell of a developer. I appreciate the support you've given me here, I said, suddenly emotional about leaving the workplace that had been my one consistent environment. Listen, Miller, about the timing. Marcus hesitated, which was unusual for him. I know things are complicated with your family right now. The company typically requires 2 weeks' notice. But given the circumstances, we could process your departure more efficiently if needed. His implication was clear. He was offering an expedited exit if my family situation made it necessary. What exactly did Berlin tell you? I asked. Nothing specific. Klaus mentioned personal circumstances when he called to check your references. I filled in some blanks. He shrugged. International relocations are complex. Sometimes things need to happen quickly. By day's end, my departure timeline accelerated dramatically. I would officially finish in 1 week with an additional week of paid leave to handle relocation logistics. The company would arrange shipping for essential belongings while providing a stipend for new furnishings in Berlin. The practical aspects of dismantling my American life proceeded with surprising efficiency. My apartment lease contained a clause allowing termination with 30 days' notice and 1 month's additional rent, a financial hit, but worth the clean break. My modest furniture sold quickly through online marketplaces, and my reliable Honda found a new owner in a graduating college student. Each logistical step completed felt like severing another tie to the life my family wanted to control. Each box packed represented freedom rather than loss. The only remaining obligation was my apartment too many personal items to simply abandon too little time to properly sort through everything. I rented a small storage unit for items with genuine sentimental value and donated the rest to local charities. 4 days into this whirlwind transformation, Mom texted asking to meet alone for coffee. Against my better judgment, I agreed, selecting a public cafe where any potential scene would be constrained by social propriety. She arrived looking smaller, somehow the confident elementary school teacher diminished by family conflict. For several minutes we engaged in painfully awkward small talk about weather and her school's upcoming spring concert. Finally, she addressed the elephant in the room. Your father told me about your job in Berlin. She began stirring her untouched coffee. Is that really happening? Yes. I leave next week. Her hand trembled slightly. So quickly, without even discussing it with family first. Recent events suggested family discussions had become one-sided affairs. She winced, but didn't argue the point. Miller, I know things have been intense lately, but running away to another continent seems extreme. Surely we can find middle ground about Natalie's situation. There is no middle ground, Mom. You and Dad gave me an ultimatum: sacrifice my financial security for Natalie or be cut off from the family. I'm simply acknowledging the choice you presented. We never wanted it to come to this, she insisted, tears forming. We just want you to help your sister. Just this once. The phrase ignited something in me. Just this once. Mom, Natalie has been given endless, just this ounces, college tuition, graduate school she didn't finish, failed business ventures, credit card bailouts, car payments, rent when she quit jobs without having new ones lined up. It's never been just this once. Mom looked genuinely surprised. How did you know about the credit cards? Dad mentioned the refinancing during our argument. It wasn't hard to connect dots. She sighed deeply. Your sister struggles in ways you don't. Life comes easier to you. Life doesn't come easier to me. I make different choices. I accept consequences. I live within my means. She found her dream home, Miller. How can you deny her that happiness? The conversation continued, circling the same drain: my obligation to sacrifice for Natalie's happiness, my selfishness for prioritizing my financial security, my cruelty for implementing account protections. When Mom finally asked directly if I would just help this one time, I replied with calm finality. No. And I need you to understand that this answer won't change no matter how many family members call or how many emotional appeals you make. She left soon after our goodbye, awkward and strained. The gulf between us felt unbridgeable, not because of anger, but because we operated from fundamentally different understandings of family obligation. The night before my departure brought one final confrontation. I was packing the last of my essential belongings when a sharp knocking interrupted my methodical work. Through the peephole, I saw Natalie alone and clearly agitated. Against my better judgment, I opened the door but blocked the entrance. "Natalie, it's late." "You're really doing this," she said, taking in the packed suitcases visible behind me. "Running away to Europe." "I accepted a job opportunity. That's all." She gave a hollow laugh. "Right. Nothing to do with refusing to help your only sister. Did you need something specific, Natalie? I'm leaving tomorrow, and still have packing to finish." Her expression shifted suddenly, vulnerability replacing hostility. "Miller, I think we got off on the wrong foot with this whole house thing. I know I may have come across entitled." The admission was so unexpected, I momentarily lowered my guard, stepping back to allow her entry. "I've been thinking about what you said," she continued, perching on the one remaining chair, "about consequences and choices. And you're right, I haven't always made the best financial decisions." For a brief, hopeful moment, I wondered if genuine reconciliation might be possible. Then she continued, "Which is why I need your help more than ever. This house could be my fresh start, my chance to finally build something stable. I've worked out a better payment plan. You wouldn't need to give me the whole $125,000, maybe just $75,000 as a loan. I'd pay you back within 5 years guaranteed." The disappointment was crushing but clarifying. "Natalie, nothing has changed. My answer is still no." Her mask of contrition vanished instantly. "Then you're still the same selfish jerk. Do you know what's happened since you pulled your little banking stunt? Dad's blood pressure is through the roof. Mom's having anxiety attacks. I lost the deposit on the house because I couldn't secure financing in time. I'm sorry about Mom and Dad's health issues, but I'm not responsible for your financial decisions." "Oh, but you are responsible for destroying this family," she countered, voice rising. "Do you know what else? I'm already $30,000 in credit card debt trying to maintain the lifestyle expected in luxury real estate. My car is 3 months behind on payments. I could lose my job if I don't look successful enough to sell high-end properties." The confession of her dire financial situation confirmed every instinct that had led me to protect my assets. This wouldn't have been a one-time loan, but the first payment in an endless cycle of financial emergencies. "Natalie, I think you should leave." "You think you're so much better than me," she spat, gathering her purse. "But you're just a coward running away from family. Enjoy your lonely life in Germany. I hope whatever money you're hoarding keeps you warm at night." As the door closed behind her, I felt an unexpected sense of peace. Tomorrow I would board a plane to Berlin, leaving behind a family dynamic that had become unsustainable. Whatever lay ahead would be challenging in different ways, but it would be shaped by my choices rather than others' expectations. Berlin in spring defied expectations. Instead of the gray industrial landscape American movies often depicted, I found a vibrant city, where historic architecture stood alongside modern design, where parks burst with unexpected greenery, and where the energy of reinvention seemed to pulse through streets that had witnessed both division and reunification. My company-arranged apartment in Prenzlauer Berg provided the perfect introduction to my new life, a sunny fifth-floor walk-up in a renovated pre-war building, with tall windows and wooden floors that creaked pleasantly underfoot. The neighborhood bustled with young families and professionals, dotted with corner cafes where laptops and conversations coexisted in comfortable harmony. The contrast with my former life was immediate and profound. Nobody in Berlin knew me as Natalie's brother or measured my worth against family expectations. My colleagues at the office welcomed me with genuine curiosity and professional respect, interested in my technical expertise rather than my personal finances or family relationships. Klaus, the team lead who had interviewed me, became an unexpected ally in my transition. "The German work-life balance might surprise you," he warned during my first week. "We expect focus during work hours, but consider emails after 6 in the evening slightly offensive. Weekends are sacred. Even your vacation days are mandated by law. You must take them." This structured separation between professional and personal spheres initially felt foreign but increasingly liberating. For 8 years, I'd been available for late-night work emergencies and weekend project sprints. Now my evenings and weekends belonged entirely to me, time to explore my new city, attend language classes, and gradually process the family rupture I'd left behind. German language classes became my Tuesday and Thursday evening ritual. Struggling through unfamiliar grammar alongside fellow immigrants created an immediate bond of shared vulnerability. My class included Sophia from Greece, Matteo from Spain, Jun from South Korea, and Aisha from Nigeria, all professionals finding their way in a new culture, all starting from scratch with Guten Tag and Wie geht es Ihnen. "Your accent is very precise," Sophia commented after hearing me practice dialogue, "like you're programming the language." "Occupational hazard," I admitted. "I speak in code most days." These small connections based on common experience, rather than obligation, gradually formed the foundation of my first authentic friendships in years. Weekend coffee with classmates evolved into exploring museums together, then trying restaurants in different neighborhoods, then hiking excursions to nearby lakes and forests. 3 months into my Berlin life, my phone still occasionally lit up with messages from home. Mom sent weekly updates that carefully avoided mentioning Natalie or the house situation, focusing instead on neighborhood news and gentle inquiries about my new city. Dad remained silent, except for a terse birthday email containing only best wishes for the year ahead. Natalie alternated between angry accusations and manipulative appeals, each ignored, until they eventually tapered off. Through a mutual friend at Tech Fusion, I learned that Natalie had indeed lost the deposit on her dream house. Rather than accepting financial reality, she had apparently convinced my parents to co-sign a different, slightly less expensive property. The information came with an additional detail that validated my decision. The friend mentioned overhearing Natalie bragging to a colleague about her backup plan to have our parents refinance their home again if she couldn't make mortgage payments. This confirmation of what would have happened had I remained entangled in family finances coincided with my 6-month performance review at the Berlin office. Klaus and the department director presented unexpected news. My work integrating the healthcare client's systems had exceeded expectations, and they wanted to promote me to project leadership for the expanded European rollout. "Your technical skills we expected," Klaus explained. "Your ability to navigate cultural differences between German, French, and Swedish medical systems while maintaining consistent implementation that impressed us most." The promotion came with another salary increase and formal recognition at the quarterly all-hands meeting. As colleagues congratulated me afterward, Julia from the design team lingered to ask about the healthcare interface. "The user experience improvements were your work," she asked, her English precise, with a slight German accent. The visual hierarchy in the patient data dashboard is elegantly structured. Our professional discussion over coffee extended into dinner, then weekend museum visits, then a spontaneous day trip to Dresden. Julia's straightforward communication style and creative perspective provided both challenge and complement to my analytical approach. Unlike previous relationships where I'd carefully monitored spending to maintain savings goals, I found myself naturally relaxing financial boundaries to embrace experiences with her: weekend trips to Prague, concert tickets, outdoor cafe, afternoons that stretched into evening without calculating the efficiency of time spent. 6 months into my Berlin life, an unexpected email arrived from cousin Rachel. "Hope this finds you well. Thought you should know Natalie's missed 3 mortgage payments already. Your parents are covering them, but struggling. Nobody blames you, just thought you should have the facts." The information landed with complicated emotions: concern for my parents, vindication of my boundaries, sadness for the continuing pattern. After careful consideration, I sent Rachel a thank you for the update, but maintained my distance from the situation. That weekend, Julia and I hiked in Saxon Switzerland National Park, the distinctive sandstone formations providing perspective that transcended my family concerns. Standing atop Baste Bridge, looking across the Elbe River Valley, I experienced a moment of profound clarity. I hadn't just escaped a toxic situation. I had created space for an authentic life aligned with my values. "You seem far away, Julia," observed her hand finding mine on the ancient stone railing. Just realizing how different my life is now, I admitted. In good ways. Different from Boston. Different from who I was in Boston, I clarified. I spent so many years defining myself by what I wasn't. Not irresponsible, not financially reckless, not demanding. I'm just starting to discover who I actually am, without those negative definitions. Julia nodded thoughtfully. This is why Germans have the concept of Fernweh, the longing for distant places. Sometimes we must travel far to find ourselves. As fall approached, another email arrived from an unexpected source, my father. The message was brief but significant. Miller, your mother had minor surgery last week. Nothing serious, just gallbladder removal. Recovery proceeding normally. Thought you should know. Insurance covered most costs, but deductible was substantial. Medical bills these days. Hope Berlin is treating you well. Dad. The subtle financial reference wasn't lost on me. The mention of medical bills contained an unstated request. After consideration, I responded with genuine concern about Mom's health-specific questions about her recovery and an offer to video chat when she felt up to it. I purposely avoided acknowledging the financial hint. Dad's reply came quickly. She's doing fine. Bills are manageable but tight with helping Natalie through rough patch. If you wanted to contribute to your mother's medical expenses, it would ease things. The direct request required a direct response. I sent a carefully worded reply, explaining that while I cared deeply about Mom's health, I couldn't financially support a household that continued enabling Natalie's irresponsible choices. I offered emotional support, regular calls, and a promise to visit when appropriate boundaries could be established. The response was predictably disappointed, but lacked the explosive anger of our previous interactions. Perhaps time and distance had tempered expectations, or perhaps the reality of Natalie's continuing financial dependence had provided perspective on my concerns. Whatever the reason, the exchange marked a subtle shift in our relationship, still damaged but evolving toward a new understanding based on mutual respect rather than compliance. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was movement in a healthier direction. The journey toward self-forgiveness began unexpectedly during a rainy November evening in my Berlin apartment. After a video call with Mom, our third since her surgery, I found myself overwhelmed by conflicting emotions and guilt for being thousands of miles away during her recovery, relief at establishing healthier boundaries, lingering anger about years, of favoritism and sadness for what our family relationship could have been. These tangled feelings manifested physically, a tight chest, shallow breathing, and a persistent sense of unease that affected my sleep and concentration. Julia noticed my distraction during dinner and gently suggested something I'd never considered. Have you thought about speaking with a therapist about your family situation? My initial resistance was automatic therapy, had always seemed like something for people with real problems, not family disagreements. But Julia's matter-of-fact approach normalized the idea. Most Germans I know have talked with a therapist at some point. It's just maintenance for the mind, like going to the dentist. 2 weeks later, I found myself in Dr. Bauman's comfortable office near Alexanderplatz, awkwardly explaining my family dynamic to a thoughtful woman with silver-framed glasses and a direct manner that somehow made vulnerability feel safe. Over subsequent sessions, patterns I'd never fully articulated emerged with painful clarity. Dr. Bauman introduced concepts like family systems theory and emotional parentification that provided framework for experiences I'd previously explained away or minimized. What you're describing has elements of financial abuse, she noted during our 4th session. Your sister and parents attempted to appropriate your resources without concern for your well-being or consent. Your decision to establish boundaries wasn't selfish, it was healthy self-preservation. These external validations gradually helped dismantle the guilt I'd carried across the Atlantic. The process wasn't linear. Some sessions left me angry at the years of manipulation I'd endured. Others brought grief for the supportive family I'd never truly had. But slowly, perspective emerged from the emotional fog. Forgiveness doesn't mean approving what happened, Dr. Bauman explained. It means releasing yourself from the burden of resentment. You can acknowledge the harm while choosing not to carry it forward. While rebuilding my internal landscape through therapy, my external world expanded in unexpected ways. Marcus from the engineering team and his husband Stefan invited me for dinner, then weekend barbecues, then their regular game nights with friends. Julia's circle of artist friends welcomed me into gallery openings and creative discussions where my analytical perspective was valued rather than dismissed as cold or calculating. During the Christmas season, when homesickness might have been most acute, Julia's family invited me to their traditional celebration in Munich. Her parents' warm welcome and genuine interest in my work and background provided a glimpse of what healthy family dynamics could look like: supportive, without being intrusive, loving, without keeping score. "They like you," Julia commented, as we took an evening walk through Munich's festive Christmas market, snowflakes catching in her dark hair. "They barely know me," I countered, still uncomfortable with easy acceptance. She squeezed my hand. "They know enough. They know you make their daughter happy. For them, that's sufficient." The contrast with my own family's conditional approval was both painful and illuminating. What Julia's parents offered: freely acceptance, respect, interest, my own had always attached to compliance with their expectations. Professional growth paralleled personal development. 9 months into my Berlin position, Klaus recommended me for promotion to team lead for the expanding healthcare division. "Your technical skills got you hired," he explained, "but your emotional intelligence and cultural adaptability earned this advancement." The irony wasn't lost on me. The supposed robot who cared only about numbers was being promoted specifically for interpersonal capabilities. With increased responsibility came deeper purpose. Noticing the lack of coding education for underserved youth in our district, I started weekend workshops at the local community center, teaching basic programming concepts to teenagers who might otherwise never consider technology. Careers. What began as a small volunteer project expanded to include other engineers from our company and eventually secured corporate sponsorship for equipment and materials. These contributions to my new community provided satisfaction beyond career advancement or financial security. For the first time, my resources, time, knowledge, money, were being shared through conscious choice rather than obligation or manipulation. The distinction transformed giving from burden to joy. As my 1-year Berlin anniversary approached, I established limited but intentional contact with my family back home. Monthly video calls with Mom maintained connection while respecting boundaries. Occasional emails with Dad remained somewhat formal but free from financial pressure. Natalie's communications I screened carefully, responding only to messages free from manipulation or demands. Christmas brought a small breakthrough: a card from Mom with a handwritten note acknowledging past patterns. "I realize now we sometimes asked more of you than was fair. Your sister's path has been challenging for all of us. I'm trying to understand your perspective better." Not an apology exactly, but recognition of the imbalance I'd named a year earlier. My return card included photos of Berlin, details of my work and volunteer teaching, and an invitation for them to visit when the time feels right for everyone. An open door, but with a frame of mutual respect. Through therapy, friendship, meaningful work, and selective family reconnection, I gradually assembled the pieces of an authentic life, one based on choice rather than obligation, values rather than appearances, boundaries rather than barrières. The most profound lesson emerged not from dramatic confrontation, but quiet reflection. True family supports your growth rather than exploiting your resources. The people who celebrate your success without expecting to benefit from it, who respect your boundaries without requiring justification, who value connection without attaching conditions, these create the foundation of healthy relationships, whether bound by blood or choice. Financial boundaries proved inseparable from emotional ones, both expressions of self-respect and personal agency. By protecting my savings from Natalie's demands, I hadn't just preserved monetary resources, but affirmed my right to determine my own priorities and values. The freedom that resulted wasn't simple independence, but interdependence on healthier terms. Relationships built on mutual respect rather than obligation, giving motivated by genuine care rather than guilt or manipulation. 1 year after my midnight financial lockdown and 57 angry calls, I stood on my Berlin apartment balcony watching the first snow of December transform the city. The journey hadn't been easy. Leaving behind family, country, and familiar patterns required courage I hadn't known I possessed. There remained unresolved pain and uncertain relationships across the ocean. Yet through crisis had come clarity. By walking away from toxic expectations, I'd found my way toward authentic connection. By refusing to enable financial irresponsibility, I'd created space for meaningful contribution. By releasing the burden of family dysfunction, I'd opened myself to genuine joy. For anyone facing similar impossible family demands, know this. Sometimes the bravest choice isn't fighting harder within broken systems, but creating new patterns entirely. Your boundaries aren't selfishness. They're the foundation of self-respect. And sometimes the family you need most is the one you build rather than the one you're born into. I'd love to hear your stories of standing up for your boundaries or creating distance from toxic situations. Has anyone else had to make the difficult choice between family expectations and personal well-being? Drop a comment below sharing your experience. Your story might help someone feeling alone in their struggle. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. Thank you for listening, and remember, choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's sometimes the most courageous thing you can do.